Okay, welcome to another episode of the Gritty Hour. Appreciate everybody who tunes in and listens or watches every week. Today, for the first time, I'm doing a solo recording, essentially because I'd like to share my experiences on the 9/11, which I happen to be working down on Wall Street on 9/11, which is about maybe 250 yards away from the World Trade Center at the time. And the anniversary, the 20th anniversary is coming up soon. So I figured I'd do a podcast where I share my experiences. Hopefully it's somewhat cathartic. And I guess I'll just start. The morning of 9/11, 2001 was like any other morning. I got up, took a shower, put my suit on, got on a train. I lived in the Bronx at the time, and as I said, I worked down on Wall Street. So going down on the train like any other morning. It was a beautiful day, as I recall. And I remember when I got down to the train left the Brooklyn Bridge station. The next stop was Fulton Street. And we stopped outside of Fulton Street. And I remember the conductor saying, we are paused here outside of Fulton for a possible bomb threat at the World Trade Center. I think he did say that. So I remember we were stopped outside of Fulton for a while. So obviously your attention gets honed in on the moment when somebody says something like that. And then, so finally we pulled into the Fulton station and, people got out. I remember some kid at the last minute running onto the train as the doors were closing, like he was glad to be getting the hell out of there. So that didn't dawn on me at the time until after the fact. But anyway, then we pulled into the Wall Street station. By this time, it was about 2 minutes to 9. And so I get off the train. That's my stop, which is right at Trinity Church. If anybody's aware of Manhattan, Trinity Church is right at the foot of Broadway and Wall Street. So the train station stopped. The train stopped. I got out. And I remember there was this huge line of people on the stairs going up the stairs, and it was stopped. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, 2 minutes to 9. It's a minute to 9. I got to be at work at 9. What's the problem here? So finally, people ended up going to the top of the stairs. And when I got to the top of the stairs, I realized why everyone was stopped on the staircase. Because I looked up, the first thing you see, well, first of all, it was raining ash. I remember that. And I looked up at the World Trade Center, and I just saw this huge ball of flame coming out of the upper level of the North Tower. And I remember standing, because there was no traffic. It was just a bunch of people standing around. And I remember standing in the middle of the street, looking up at that and thinking, how in the hell are they going to fight that fire? And I remember, and this is another retrospect moment, I remember seeing things falling off the tower as I was looking at it. And just thought it was debris. So then I walked down to my office. I was at 14 Wall Street, which was directly across the street from the entrance to the stock exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, 14 Wall. And I get into the elevator, and there was two fellas were in the elevator with me, and I'm saying to them, I don't know how the hell they're going to fight that fire. I said, I have a feeling we're not going to be doing any work today. And he said, yeah, we just came from there. There's actually people jumping out of the building. And then it dawned on me it was not going to be a normal day. because that debris apparently was people. So anyway, I got into my office, and there was a few people there. Went to the trading room, which had a TV there, and they were looking at the tower, which was across the street, but we were looking at it on the television. And I remember the people on the news were saying they believed a small biplane or a small plane had flown into the tower. And even then, I'm thinking the size of that ball of fire I was looking at, there was no way that could be a single plane, a small little plane. And then I was, talking to a few people. I remember one girl coming up and asking me for a cigarette, so I guess we could smoke in the office. And so we had a cigarette in the kitchen, and I went back to the trading room just in time to see the second plane going into the South Tower live. And I heard it. It's weird. You're watching it on TV in a trading room on the 17th floor of a building that's about 250 yards away, maybe. But I could hear it live. I could hear the boom, like a sonic boom. Actually felt our building rattle a little bit. And then, you see it on TV. So I actually experienced it on TV and in real life all at the same time. By that time, the thing that sticks out in my head was how much misinformation got thrown around. There was people saying the Pentagon was hit, the White House was hit, all sorts of these buildings in Washington were being hit. And the stupid thought crossed my head that it was a coup, that the country is being taken over by somebody. I know that sounds ridiculous and 20 years later, but at the time, that's what I was thinking. So then, we walking around, we're just talking to each other. A couple more people came in. I remember one girl came in who had taken the PATH train. She lived in New Jersey, and she took the PATH train in to work, and her hair was singed from debris that was coming off the building as she was coming out of the PATH train. And she said she ran to the office from the train station, about maybe a block and a half away. And I remember her hair was singed from stuff that was coming out of the building. And so we're all milling around, and all of a sudden, it felt like an earthquake. The whole building started to shake. And this is, I guess, when the South Tower collapsed. I remember the building shaking. I went over towards the trading room, and I looked out the window, and I saw the window just getting completely black with debris. The window was rattling and shaking hard, and the building itself, I remember, moved. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see out the window. It was completely black outside. And then the alarm in the building went off, and everyone started to evacuate the 17th floor, I guess all the floors. And I remember we went out into the hallway, and some people were going to take the elevator for something. I remember something in my head saying, during a fire, and you don't know what the hell's going on, during a fire, you should never take an elevator. So I remember directing people down the stairs. And I was with this other fella who also lived in the Bronx. He was about 63 years old at the time. I was 38 at the time. He was had a hard time walking under normal circumstances. Well, anyway, I checked around to make sure. He said he had to go to the bathroom. I remember that. So I remember waiting for him. Everybody else had left down the stairs. A couple of officers on that floor, they all evacuated down the staircase. And I suppose some people took the elevator. But so he finally got out of the bathroom. I actually looked in the bathroom to make sure it was empty. And then he and I left. And for those who have never been in a high rise, so the 17th floor has two flights, I guess you could call it, upstairs per floor. So 17 floors, you're going down 30, what is that, 34 different flights of stairs. And I remember making the, and there was people passing us because, you know, my friend was going down slowly. And there's people passing us and everybody had that worried look on their face, you know. And I remember my friend asking me, I remember him commenting that he doesn't want to die in the staircase. And I remember saying to him, you're going to die someday, but it won't be today. So you just keep moving. So we finally get to the lobby. And when we got into the lobby, everybody that works in this building, it's like a 40-story building, was in the lobby. I'm talking, you couldn't even barely move in the lobby. And we're just standing in the lobby. And I remember one fella came in from the outside. I think he ran into the building for a respite, and he was completely gray from head to toe. And somebody was giving him a bottle of water, and he was pouring it over his head. And so we basically waited out in the lobby. I could see out the door where I could normally see the entrance to the New York Stock Exchange. I couldn't see out at all. It was like nighttime out there. And this was whatever, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So it was probably around 10 and change in the morning. So, you know, we're just milling around in the lobby, very crowded lobby. I remember they wanted whoever ran that building at the time wanted to move people into in the lobby. We had a gym. There was a public gym there, and it had its own, I don't know, central air conditioner or central air system, because it started to get a little in the lobby. It started to get a little hard to breathe. So we all went into this gym. I don't know how the hell everybody fit in there, but, and again, so we're away from the radio, away from the TV. This is before cell phones were all that prevalent. So basically, literally and figuratively in the dark as to what the hell was going on. And, but then there was a TV in the gym. And somebody turned, you know, had the TV on. So we were watching the news in the gym. And then we found out about the 2 planes. There was 2 757s, which are as big as they get in terms of planes. And the South Tower had collapsed. So that's what all that ruckus was in the office, the building shaking, everything else. So we stayed in the gym for quite some time, and it was actually in the lobby also. There were a row of payphones. I remember calling my mother, who's now deceased, just to tell her I was still alive, and that well, actually, I should backtrack. We were asked not to leave the building, and no one was able to enter the building after a certain time. So they basically shut the building down. And so I called my mother, told her I was okay, just wait and get the hell out of there somehow. And she had mentioned my sister, Susan, who also worked down in the Wall Street area. She worked at 30 West Broadway, which her office window looked out on the Trade Center. So it was basically her building, parking lot and then the South Tower. So fortunately, she didn't go into her office, but she did try to get into my building to hook up with me. But they weren't letting people in. They weren't letting people out. She has a story that I won't tell, but it's much more dramatic than the story I'm going to tell you. So we went, like I say, we were milling around the lobby, and then all of a sudden it started to clear a little bit. And I remember talking to this other fella from the trading room. His name was Dick, and he's passed away too, unfortunately. I remember telling him, let's go down to the Kalani Rose, which about a block and a half away was a bar. And I'm thinking, if we're going to stand around and twiddle our thumbs, we might as well have a libation while we're doing it. Because it started to clear up outside, It was, I looked out the lobby door, and I could actually see the entrance to the stock exchange again. In fact, I saw one of the guards at the stock exchange standing outside with a 45 in his hand. And I remember thinking, what the hell's he going to do? Shoot a plane down with a 45? But whatever. So we said, he said, let's go. We'll go to Kalani Rose. We'll have a couple of beers and see what the hell happens. You're being ignorant at the time. You don't know what the hell's going on. So we left the building, and just as we walked out the building onto Wall Street, the second building, the North Tower, started to come down. And then everybody, he and I, and there were dozens of people behind us that decided to leave at the same time, all ran back into our building. And I remember when we got into the building, looking behind me, and there was this huge whoosh of debris coming down the street. And I couldn't see the stock exchange anymore again. And I couldn't see out it looked like nighttime again. So the other building collapsed, I guess, and we were all still stuck in 14 Wall Street lobby / gym / whatever. So by this time we were back in the gym, and we could see on the TV what was happening. And we were there for quite some time. And by this time they were reporting extensively about the plane that hit the Pentagon and the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. And at the time they were saying there was another plane out there, but I think it was an unidentified plane that they subsequently identified, maybe. And I also remember them saying that they found 4 or 5 guys never showed up at Newark Airport for a plane that was supposed to go to Los Angeles, and they never boarded the plane, and the plane was grounded, and those guys disappeared, and they found their luggage. I never hear anybody talking about that anymore, because apparently they found a bunch of the Quran and other type things, and those guys never heard from. I never heard that story anymore after that. I don't know what the hell happened to that plane, but anyway. So finally, the debris from the second the second building collapse started to clear. I could look out again. By this time, I was with the said gentleman that I went down the stairs with, because as we were hanging out in the lobby or the gym, everybody was talking about how they're going to get home, and people were saying there were ferries going over to Jersey and the ferries going over wherever, and there were ferries going to Brooklyn. So this other friend and this girl that I work with, her name is Camille. And this fella's name is Larry. The three of us left the building and went east in hopes of finding a ferry going somewhere. We didn't know where the hell we were going at the time. But the two things that stick out in my head about that is how silent it was. And this is a few hours after or maybe at least an hour and change after the second building collapsed. It was perfectly still the way it felt like it feels right after a blizzard when snowing first stops, and it's deathly silence. The acoustics of the whole Wall Street area was, you could hear a pin drop. And I remember walking through ash that went up just below our kneecaps, just ash. So it was like a blizzard of ash. And I remember at the corner of Nassau Street and Wall Street, or Nassau and Broad and Wall, there was an SUV with the door flung open and the engine running, completely filled with ash and dirt and dust, debris. So whoever was driving that said, "Screw it," jumped out of the car and ran, made a run for it somewhere. And so then the three of us, Camille, Larry, and I, walked down. I should preface, the building management had given out all of their face masks, which were similar, not too dissimilar from this one. And then they ran out of them and started giving out, which I thought was kind of funny even at the time, coffee filters to put over your face. So I had a coffee filter. So I remember we walking down, and of course people are starting to come out of their buildings and mill around, trying to figure out what to do, each and all of us. And so Larry and Camille and I walked towards where the hell were we? Just south of the South Street Seaport. And I think Camille got in touch with her brother or somebody that was going to meet her on the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge. So she went home, or she left to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. And then I guess her brother was going to try and meet her on the flip side of that bridge on the Brooklyn side. And Larry and I were sitting on a bench right near the East River there. And I remember some guy, I guess he had a boat. And he comes up to the two of us. He goes, "Where are you guys headed?" I said, we're going to the Bronx." He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to Brooklyn." He goes, "Good luck." So I knew this was not going to be an easy journey. But so Larry, 63-year-old Larry with his bad leg, and myself just started walking up Manhattan. And one thing that sticks in my head, it was as we got close to the city hall, there was a ton of people. Everybody was walking north. And I remember an F-14, I guess, or an F-16 was coming overhead. And I remember a bunch of ladies that were ahead of us on the sidewalk started screaming. I mean, screaming. They thought it was another jet plane. And I remember saying probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever said, which I said to them, "Relax, it's one of ours," which was a pretty stupid thing to say. But anyway, so that was an F. I remember that guy, and he was doing like flips and stuff as he went up Manhattan. But it felt reassuring to have him there anyway. And the other thing that sticks in my head going up, we walked up Broadway, essentially, is just about every block, someone, I guess, that lived around there were offering us sandwiches or water or soda or whatever. And, that act of kindness stuck out in my head. And as we went further north, the only thing I remember is Starbucks. We passed quite a few of them on the way up Broadway. And every Starbucks we passed was closed, and they were already had signs saying blood donations. They're going to ask for blood donations at all the Starbucks, which I thought was pretty cool too. Because people forget that of all the few thousand people that were killed that day, there were quite a few thousand that were injured that day, which is another, I'm not sure, 8,000. I heard 8,000 injured that day. So anyway, we ended up walking. We stopped in some coffee shop in the village, around the village, somewhere around there, I think, or Soho maybe. And they had a TV on in there. Everybody was just sitting around having lunch like it was a normal day, which struck me kind of funny. And the TV was on, and I remember somebody mentioning that the mention on the TV that the president was safe and he was on Air Force One and he was flying out wherever the hell he was going. Anyway, it must have been on the east side we walked up, not Soho, because I remember walking through Little Italy also. So we definitely deviated from Broadway. So walking through Little Italy also. But anyway, after quite some time, we finally made it to Grand Central. And by the grace of God, the MTA was running shuttle trains no further south than Grand Central. So Larry, who lived on the west side of the Bronx, and myself, who lived on the east side of the Bronx, went our separate ways from then on. And I went, I was in Grand Central, and I got on a very crowded train, and wasn't aware of my own appearance, but I must not have looked too good, because I remember two young teenagers got up and asked if I wanted to sit down. So they must have known by my appearance. I'll jump ahead and say, by the time I got home, I realized my hair, which was brown at the time, was gray, and my suit was gray, which was blue at the time, and my shoes were gray, which was black at the time. So they I guess got to look at me and asked if I wanted to sit down, which I said no. But so the train finally moseyed up to the Bronx, and I remember getting off at my station, which was the last stop. I remember when the train came out of the tunnel. There's a tunnel that goes, when it goes from Manhattan to the Bronx, goes through the 3rd Avenue tunnel, and I remember becomes an elevated train. I remember looking out and just seeing the smoke from the trade centers stretching about as far as your eye can see, the smoke trails from both of them, which by then were piles. So I get off at Pelham Bay, and I remember going down the stairs, and across the street from the train station was a diner. And I remember the waitress was an Irish girl. She knew me because I went to that diner often. And I remember the look on her face when she saw me coming down them stairs. I must have looked like I just played an 80-year-old man on TV or something. So anyway, I get home and found out subsequently that my sister, who lived upstate in Carmel, New York at the time, got home about 3 hours before I did. I don't know how the hell she got home, but so fast. But I didn't get home till about 5:45, 5:30, 5:45 at night. This is after leaving Wall Street. I think we left it around 1:30, 1:45. So, but anyway, and then I got home and the phone was ringing, and it was my godson, Christopher, and his then girlfriend calling me. And I have to admit, I kind of broke down. I guess the adrenaline was leaving my body. And I remember actually, before they called, I got home and I turned the shower on. It's just the first thing I wanted to do was take a shower. So as the shower water was running, I was going to take my suit off, and the phone rang, and it was Christopher and his girlfriend asking me how I was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He tried calling my office, but the phones didn't work. In fact, the phones didn't work for about 4 months after that, because the relay stations, I believe, were in the basement of the Trade Center. So I was on the phone with them for about half an hour, and I called my mother, and my sister spoke to them. And then my aunt, who's since passed away, my Aunt Rita, who lived in Las Vegas, called me. I didn't get in the friggin' shower till like 7:15. But anyway, so like everybody else in America, I guess I got out of the shower and just sat in the chair and watched the television till at least 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember hanging that suit up as is, and I was going to save it, but as a posterity, because it was full of debris from the two towers. But a few weeks later, I ended up giving it to the cleaners. They cleaned it, but I should have kept it. So that was my 9/11 day story. And then the next day or so, that was a Tuesday, and the stock exchange had announced they were going to be closed until the following Monday, I believe. So the powers that be in my company, Wellington and Company at the time it was called, I think they've merged. The powers that be were calling me, and I had volunteered to meet this other fellow who was our computer person, to go down there and test the systems on Friday to see if we could open up on Monday with no problems, which we attempted to do. So I met him. His name was Colin. I met that fella. He was Guyanese. He was half Guyanese, half Irish, but he looked Guyanese. His name was Colin O'Reilly. If you happen to trip over this podcast, Colin, hope all is well. Haven't talked to you in about 18 years. But I met him at Grand Central. We went down, and by that time, by Friday, it was going down as far as the Brooklyn Bridge. They weren't going any further south than Brooklyn Bridge. So we got off at the Brooklyn Bridge, and then we had to walk north to Foley Square. We had to walk north. They weren't letting you walk directly south from the train down Broadway. Broadway was closed. So we walked north to Foley Square and tried to come down Water Street, which we ended up doing. We went to a police. The two things that stick in my head was there's one guy in plain clothes directing traffic over I think the Williamsburg Bridge. He had a police badge around his neck, but he was in plain clothes, and he had like an M16 in his hand, a big gun. It looked like an M16 to me, which was kind of surreal. And Colin and I hit a checkpoint, police line. We needed to show ID. I had my building ID. Colin had his building ID. Kind of, even after all these years, I'm kind of upset with the fact they let me right through, and the cop at that first checkpoint had to pat him down, even after he showed his ID. But that was the sensitivity of the time, I suppose. Made no sense to me even then. So we're walking down. We finally get to Water Street, and there was another checkpoint, and the same exact thing happened. Another cop. Basically, we showed our IDs. They let us in. I walked through. They patted him down. Still kind of pissed about that. But anyway, then we get to the corner of Water Street and Wall Street, And across the street, and the sanitation hadn't come around yet to clean up everything. So we're still walking through piles of soot and dust and debris from the towers. And I remember when we got to the corner of Water and Wall, there was sandbags about 4 foot high directly across the street from one end to the other, with one little entrance. And it was, I don't know if they were National Guard or whatever. So we showed our ID there. So that's the third checkpoint. And so we started walking west on Wall Street to get up to 14 Wall. And at the corner of Broad and Wall, for those who aren't from New York, south of Wall Street is called Broad Street. The road parallel, the crossroad. South is Broad, and it turns into Nassau going north, which is right by Federal Hall, if anybody knows the area. At that corner, there were 2 police cars, because this is right where the stock exchange is. And they weren't, and with a police line on the side, or with a police barricade on the sidewalk, and they weren't letting us pass. I said, we work at 14 Wall right up here. We're just here to test the systems to see if they, we're ready to rock for Monday. And I remember the sergeant that was there said to the other fella, I'll walk him up to make sure it was okay. And I said, I can't believe how much security it is down here. I didn't realize this was the exact moment that President Bush was talking through his bullhorn there. I'm sure anybody seeing or listening to this have seen that when he's on the ground zero talking through his bullhorn. That was the exact moment we were walking up Wall Street. So that's why, that was the main reason for all this security. So anyway, the sergeant, and I'm telling the sergeant, I can't believe how much, like 3 checkpoints to get down to where we are. And you guys, he goes, this ain't nothing, look behind you. And he points to the roof of the building back down the block on the corner of Water and Wall Street. And he goes, look at the roof. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was an anti-aircraft gun on the roof of this building on the corner of Water and Wall. You guys, whoever's listening or seeing that, probably never knew that, but I'm here to tell you it's the truth. So anyway, the sergeant walks us into the building. The building was completely deserted. We got up to the 17th floor where we worked, and I guess when I opened up the office door, the sergeant was satisfied that I belonged there. So, but he had an ulterior motive too, because the first thing he asked was if we had a bathroom in there. So, yeah, so he went to the bathroom. But anyway, so then, that was it. We fired up the systems. The phones didn't work. We didn't, there's a thing on Wall Street called settlement. We have to settle every day, every trading day. And we never settled on 9/11. Apparently there was a less than 10 brokerage houses that never settled. H.G. Wellington was one of them. But anyway, the phones didn't work, and the computers, as I recall, the computers did work. And then actually, when Colin and I were in the office, we heard a phone ring, and sure enough, the phones that were in the offices on the 18th floor, one floor above us, whereas it was a different company. I forget what our company was, but whatever company we had, the relay stations or whatever were in the lobby of in the basement of the trade center. This company, which I think was AT&T, was not. So their phones worked. So we went up there. There was nobody up there, and we conducted business, if you want to call it settling. I manually settled things on the phone in somebody else's office that day. So that's my 9/11 story. I hope it wasn't too boring for you, but I figured with our 20th anniversary coming up, I figured I'd share my 9/11 story to you. And I'd like to do that in memory of all those we lost that day, including Lieutenant Raymond Murphy, Fire Department. He was a friend of our family. His family and ours were in the same neighborhood growing up in the Bronx. And he passed away that day, unfortunately. And Tom Farrelly, who was my sophomore year algebra teacher, he left teaching, and I believe he was working in Cantor Fitzgerald, and he passed away that day too. So to those and everyone else we lost that day, this podcast is a tribute to those. And thanks for taking the time to listen to me.